Hi, it's Evan, back with another 2023 Cheltenham Festival Ante Post Selection video. This is episode number 6. Selection number 7, as we had a double selection last week. Next week will be the final episode in this series, selection number 8. And then that week before the festival, I'm going to do a full festival analysis, looking at every single race at the festival. I'm going to give my selection for every race and a value bet in every race. If you are enjoying this series, please do press the button to subscribe to the channel. Next year is going to be very different. We're going to have a full anti-post series starting around September, October time, much more long range than the 8 weeks we've done this year. But look, we've got to get this year's festival out the way first. So without further ado, let's get into the penultimate selection. So we're now 3 weeks out from the start of the 2023 Cheltenham Festival. And as we get close to the festival, it's becoming harder and harder to find value within these anti-post markets. Now, my style of betting, as I've said in previous videos, is a more long-range forecast where I like to, target horses who I believe will shorten in price throughout the season and will target specific races at the festival. That's obviously been a bit harder to do in this short 8-week series that we've put together here. But I believe this week I've found a horse who does represent great value at their current anti-post price. What I'm going to do, similarly to previous weeks, is explain who the horse is, look at stats within that race, look at that horse's form throughout this season, and then we'll look at the current market, the current prices of other horses and other contenders, and talk through some of the horses' competition. So my selection this week, like I said, a horse that I believe still represents great value at its current anti-post price, comes in the Mares Hurdle. And that horse is Echoes in Rain, currently priced at 10-1 for the race. I really think that 10-1 is a fantastic anti-post price for Echoes in Rain within this market. I don't think she would look out of place at around, the 5 to 6-1 mark. So yeah, genuinely think 10-1 is a great price. She does hold an entry in both this race, the Mares Hurdle, and the Champion Hurdle, which is probably what's influencing that price a little bit. She is 7-1 in this race, non-runner, no bet, so that shows, the slight discrepancy there. But I believe this is the race she would target. I'd be very surprised if she goes to the Champion Hurdle. I think Echoes in Rain is Willie Mullins' best shot in the Mares Hurdle. We'll come on to the other contenders within this race a bit later. I think that, clearly Stateman and Vauban are, Willie Mullins' best chances of challenging Constitution Hill within the Champion Hurdle. So I think it makes sense, like I say, to send Echoes in Rain to this race as the best shot at winning it. Now, an interesting stat around this race is since it's been a Grade 1, so 8 runnings of this race since 2015 when it became a Grade 1, it's been won by a 7-year-old 6 out of 8 of those times. So 75% of times it's been won by a horse who's 7 years old. Just point out here, Echoes in Rain is 7 years old. The other two, Apples Jade won as a 5-year-old, and Honeysuckle won this race as a 6-year-old. But yeah, like I say, the other 6 runnings since 2015 has been won by a 7-year-old. In fact, this race has only ever been won by a horse over the age of 7, twice. Both of them times being Cubega, when she won it, 6 times in a row. I think that's an interesting stat. And, age is not necessarily a stat I tend to pay too much attention to. Could just be a coincidence. But, it's there in black and white. So let's raise it. Let's focus on it now. It's also interesting that at the top of the market, you've got Honeysuckle as a 9-year-old. You've got Epatante as a 9-year-old. You've got last year's winner, Maurice Rock, who might not even go for this race, may go for the Stayers, as an 8-year-old. And then you've got, Echoes in Rain as a 7-year-old. So I just wanted to point that out. I think that's interesting when I look through the stats there. Now, looking at Echoes in Rain's runs this season, or even dating back to last season, she did run in this race at the Cheltenham Festival last year and finished 5th. And it wasn't a bad performance at all, really. As the race started to get going, started to heat up, 2 out, she was really badly hampered by a faller. She then got, bumped around a lot in the field. It was quite a condensed field coming around the corner into the straight. and stayed on nicely to finish 5th as a 6-year-old. Now, since then, she went to Punchestown, the Punchestown Festival, after the Cheltenham Festival, and finished close up second, I believe about 3 lengths behind Honeysuckle. So a nice run straight after the festival, and very close to, the favourite for this race in current anti-post markets, Honeysuckle. Now then last summer, interestingly, she went over the flat, went back onto the flat, maybe to, get the owners a little bit of prize money who, wanted to utilise her stamina maybe. But she had 3 runs in the flat, the final one of those where she finished second in the Irish Cesarovic, a 30-runner race, a really good high quality race, run the flat over 2 mile, 1 furlong, and she came marginal second to Waterville in that race, really proving her quality as a top class horse. Now after those 3 flat runs, she then went back over hurdles and has had 2 runs over hurdles this season. The first of those was in the Hatton's Grace, the race that famously Honeysuckle lost her unbeaten crown in. And she ran very well in that race. She travelled nicely through the race. But as she was, coming through at the end, she fell, unfortunately, at the last hurdle. So we'll never know how close she would have got to Honeysuckle, to Tiupu, to Classical Dream. But she did look to be running nicely and, may well have gone very close to those horses. She then came out after that race in in January, in the Limehouse Lad Hurdle, over 2 miles. Not the greatest field, to be honest. Sorry, Bob Ollinger. But won that race cosily, won by 10 lengths, didn't really come off the bridle. A very impressive win over 2 miles. Now, I honestly would have absolutely no concerns on her stamina back up to the 2 mile 4 mares hurdle distance at all. If a horse has the quality to run 2 mile 1 in a hotly contested flat race, then there's no stamina concerns from me over the 2 mile 4 distance. And, she proved it last season. She stayed on nicely at the end of the race after being hampered and bumped about a bit. So I think it's fair to say a mixed season since last year's Cheltenham, flat and then hurdles again, but performed with quality and, like I said, has gone very close in the Punchestown Festival, for example. May well have then gone very close again, but if not falling, to Honeysuckle, who is the favourite for this race at the top of the market. Now, there are races this season. If we now, like we have done in previous videos, move on to Sky Bet and have a look at the current field and what that looks like. So heading this anti-post market, we have Honeysuckle at 5-2, who I think it's fair to say has had a disappointing season. Has not won either of her races this season. Lost her unbeaten crown, finishing second in the Hatton's Grace behind Tiupu, which I just referenced. Then finished, again, I think it's fair to say, an expected second behind State Man at the Dublin Racing Festival. Unfortunately, I just think she isn't the superior horse in the 2 mile hurdling division anymore that she has been in recent seasons, with those younger guns in Constitution Hill and State Man coming through the ranks in that division. No issues on whether she stays. She did win this race back in 2020 and has won over the distance many times earlier in her career before she dropped back to 2 miles. But I do think this is kind of the admitting defeat kind of fallback race. She is clearly on a downward trajectory. It's just, that question, does she have one final race left in her before she most likely bows out after the festival? Then we have last year's winner, Marie's Rock, at 4-1. Now, she may not even go for this race, as Nicky Henderson's referenced that he may target the Stayers hurdle with her. She's currently 9-2 third favourite in the anti-post market there. So I'm not sure there's too much value in either market, considering it's anti-post and you lose your stake if you get it wrong. If I had to say, I would say she's marginally more likely to go here in the Mers hurdle. I do think a lot depends on what Epatante does. If Nicky Henderson supplements Epatante for this race after he apparently forgot to enter her, then maybe he throws a dart at the Stayers with Marie's Rock and puts Epatante here. For that reason, anyway, I'm happy to leave Marie's Rock alone. Even though she did win impressively at Cheltenham in January on her seasonal reappearance, happy to leave her alone here, which leads nicely onto Epatante, who is next in the anti-post market at 9-2. like I've just said, still needs to be supplemented if she is to go here. But I think she is still a class horse. I put out a tweet a few weeks ago about her form since November 2021, where she's finished first in the Fighting Fifth, first in the Christmas Hurdle, second in the Champion Hurdle last year at Cheltenham, first in the Aintree Hurdle, third in the Punchestown Festival, then this year second to Constitution Hill and second again to Constitution Hill, which are both as good as winning in my book. All of those, 7 races that I've just listed there are grade 1s. So she's still clearly, mixing it at the top level. Then she ran in a grade 2 in January and won very nicely in that race as well. Look, I think it's the same story as Honeysuckle in that she's riding the wave as a grade 1 top quality horse, but at 9 years old, is that wave breaking? Or has she, got one last grade 1 left in her locker? But look, I like Epatante, and I think if she goes here, she does have a good shot too. Then we have Brandy Love at 5-1. Now, I'm recording this on Tuesday, the 21st of Feb. Brandy Love actually runs tomorrow in the Grade 3 Cavagan Mares Hurdle, over the 2 mile 4 Mares Hurdle distance. That's her first run for her new owners, the Donnellys, in those famous Shiskin colours. It's a weak looking race. Look, she's currently odds-on favourite to win with Queensbrook, who I honestly don't really rate that highly, as the 2-1 challenger in behind. I think she probably wins impressively, and we see this 5-1 shorten. With the short-term view of Ante Post markets currently, maybe even she goes favourite for this race, who knows. But look, with fitness concerns, and given the fact that this is her first run this season, less than 3 weeks out from the Cheltenham Festival, I'm happy to leave her alone in this market for now. Lmpz at 6s has run well this season. Won the Mares Novice Hurdle at the festival last year, although the form of that race, to be honest, looks pretty average. I think Lmpz is the only horse in there who's come out and actually done anything this season from that race. But Lmpz has won impressively on her 2 starts this season, albeit in a handicap, then a listing race, both at short prices. But in her 9 runs ever, has only ever lost once, where she came second to Brandy Love at Fairyhouse after the Cheltenham Festival last year. So a good horse. I certainly won't be writing her off, but needs to prove she can mix it at the top level for me before I get involved in her. Then Echoes in Rain sat pretty at those double figure odds there. Then horses like She Wears It Well, Queensbrook, Tell Me Something Girl, all who can put up a decent performance on their day, but all who are probably correctly priced around the 20-1 mark, and then bigger prices the rest. So some good horses there, all with chances to go well in this race. Positives and negatives for everyone, but I really like the Echoes in Rain shout at the current 10-1 price point. I think we will see the market shake up this week with Brandy Love running tomorrow. Like I have said, expect her to run well and expect maybe even her to go favourite for this race. Who knows? We saw the same thing last week where I put up a selection in the Ryanair, and then Shishkin and Janadil both came out over the weekend, ran well, and their odds shortened. But look, who knows what will happen? I'm happy with the selection. So, like I've said, this week's selection is Echoes in Rain, currently priced at 10-1 for the Mares Hurdle. Now, before we close out this video, I do want to just cover off my selections so far in the videos to date. Interesting overall selection picture, I would say. In week 1, we put up Queen's Gamble at 8-1. Bit disappointed with that selection, to be honest, as she's come out since and, not done herself too much of a disservice, but finished second in a race that she was probably expected to go out and win emphatically. Her price has now been pushed out to 14-1. Probably serves me right for picking a horse in, what is always the toughest market to predict, the Champion Bumper. Actually looks to be a really exciting race, some really good horses across the board. And I do think Queen's Gamble still has a shot. Maybe even is the, best chance for the Brits at the moment. Who knows? Week 2, put up Dark Raven for the Ballymore at 33-1. I think Dark Raven's price is now into around the 20-1, 25-1 mark. Still the question marks over which race Dark Raven will go for. Will he go for the Supreme or will he go for the Ballymore? Now, Hunter's Yarn came out and won nicely over the 2 mile distance, so that probably pushes Hunter's Yarn into the Supreme for the same owners. Impere Pass could go to either, maybe the Ballymore. So I think Dark Raven, again, probably could sit in either category. I would, again, say 60-40, probably in the Ballymore side. So I hope that he does go for the Ballymore, but time will tell on that one. Week 3, put up Home by the Lee at 9-2. He's still currently in and around that kind of price point. We obviously saw Blazing Carl come out and win nicely on his seasonal debut. I think Blazing Carl has a good chance for the race, has at least proved that he's a decent horse. But I still like Home by the Lee. I'll still be siding with Home by the Lee at the top of that market, and yeah, I think he's the best shot of winning the race. Next week, week 4, we put up 3-card Bragg at 9-1 for the Albert Bartlett. Again, in and around that kind of same price point, not too much change in the market. We obviously saw Hidden Valley Lake come out and wasn't quite as impressive as people hoped. I still think Hidden Valley Lakes has a great chance for the race, but my bet would still be on the side of 3-card Bragg for that race. Like I say, not too much change there. Last week, we put up French Dynamite for the Ryanair at a bigger price. Again, apart from, Shishkin coming out and looking good, putting himself into, almost an even money favourite for the race. Janadil came out and looked good. I still think French Dynamite's chances are pretty much the same as they were when we did the video last week. I also put up the double last week of Lossymouth and Mighty Potter. Bit of a cheeky one because I'm so confident in both of those horses. I just wanted to get one on the board. Yeah, minimal change to obviously that bet as well. And then this week, the 7th selection is Echoes in Rain, as we've said, at 10-1. Maybe out of all, when I look through those bets, my strongest fancy of any selection that I've put up so far at the prices. I really think that 10-1, and I know I've said it, I know I say it in every video, but I really think that 10-1 is great value based on all of the factors and the market and the form, etc. that I've discussed throughout this video. So a horse that I am excited for. That closes out the review of the bets so far. That closes out this video. Please like the video. Please do interact with me. Put a comment on the video if you've got any thoughts. Please subscribe to the channel. It means you'll get notified whenever I put new videos out, and it means you'll see them on your feed. Thanks for watching. Like I said, I'll be back with one final Ante Post video next week before I put up the full festival review the following week. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you soon.